the topic of this panel discussion is cell therapy, global potential and local challenges. And first of all, Kerstin, I'd like to ask you, why are Medicon Village so interested in actually investing in cell therapy area?
First of all, I think it's very important to remember that this is a new area, it's a challenging area, and Medicon Village as a science park, we try and we aim to make it as easy, if it's not easy, I don't know, but to help those developing companies, start-up companies, so they really can focus on what they are good, their own science, their own business model. So what we are aiming, trying to help them, that is to have the right facilities. But we should also remember what's so important, that is the competence in this area. Because if you are in the front of the science, you really need to have the best competency. And that's what we are trying to aim, to build that community around the companies in cell and gene therapy to support them. I will also say another thing, I will not talk too much, and that is what we're trying to focus on some areas, and that is, for example, oncology that we heard Evi talk about earlier. And here we have more than 300 scientists in oncology, but also almost 20 companies. And by that we can also have some synergies between the different areas in immunotherapy, which we'll hear a bit more later today, but also in cell and gene therapy.
Lars, what would you say is Sweden, in general, Sweden's position in the global competitive landscape of cell therapy?
Oh, that's a difficult one. But if we look at Sweden, we have a fairly small number of cell therapy companies. We've seen 2 today, and there are a handful more in the country, and a fairly short sort of historic track record in cell therapy, but that is changing fairly rapidly. Now, on the other side, we have an enormous competence in drug development in this country, from Astra, ex-Astra people, Pharmacia people. So Sweden has a very high knowledge in how to develop medical products, which really makes the run rate going forward really good. So I think we are behind a number of other countries, but we are moving fast in the right direction. And also the experience from the sort of the pharma people in the company in the country really has the experience of working globally, because what we are working with is something which is globally. Both Xintela and Idogen are of course looking at the global market for what we're developing long term.
Yeah. And Evi, when you're developing a cell therapy, the cell is the medicine, which makes the manufacturing process very crucial. How are you handling that challenge at Xintela?
Well, as you heard in my presentation, we identified very early that to have our own GMP facility is very critical. I mean, this is a complex product with a complex technology, and with a GMP facility in house, we have the process development, and the next door the GMP facility, and we can keep full control of our own future, of our own development, and also on cost. Thinking about cost, this is also I think a very good investment. Yeah, and we're not talking about, when you talk about it, building your own GMP facility, it sounds like you're going to build a big factory, but that is not really the case. The cell manufacturing today with the bioreactors and what we have is compact living. So of course it's very strict processes and the quality systems that we have developed, but it does not require big area. So I
saw the room. It's about the size of my first apartment.
Yeah.
Hardly turn around in it.
You should see ours.
Yeah,
it's half the size.
It's half the size. I was just going to ask you, Lars, how are you handling this this manufacturing process What's your strategy there?
It's in a way it's the same. We have a higher degree of complexity because we are working with the cells from the patient.
Yeah.
So every patient is a new manufacturing process, which then is an added complexity compared to Xintela's way. When we started, our standard thinking was we're a small company. This should be outsourced to a contract manufacturing organization. But when we started to look into the complexity of the process, to the cost of production going out to a contract manufacturing organization, we found that the price was really roughly the same. And as we develop the process now, similar to Hedby, we understand that it's really important that production and research need to work hand in hand all the way very early on.
And Kerstin, Medicon Village and both Idogen and Xintela are also involved in a project, a national project, I think, called CAMP. You tell us something about that?
I think it's really fantastic that the Swedish government, first of all, want to focus on life science. It is a priority area for the government. And also they have decided to allocate some money for Vinnova and this CAMP project in order to support startup companies. So there is more than 22 participants in this program from all part of Sweden. And so it's a frame, and in this frame camp, it's possible to apply for money for different projects. And I'm a bit surprised because we are the only science park that is part of this program, because we think it's so important to support the companies and be involved in the different projects. So it's difficult to answer now what all the projects will, because during this project it will be developed a lot of different, which I know that you are both participating in those different.
So the future will tell, but you are paving the way to facilitate for.
I think it's important if we want to keep good competencies, good companies in Sweden, we need to support them, we need to help them. Because I think Sweden is known for science. There was a presentation in Japan, if it was last year or something like that, that Sweden was one of the top countries in cell and gene therapy. And when I heard this, are we one of the top countries? Of course we are, because we are so good in science. We publish a lot of articles. But what we really need to do now, that is to turn science into business. And I think we have two fantastic examples here. But it is a challenge, and we should be aware of that. And we need to support and help each other.
Sounds good. Really short, we have about 1 minute left. Globally speaking, what are the major cell therapy trends that you are watching closely right now? Hedby, you can start.
Well, trends, I don't know, but we're very excited about what's happening in Japan, and that in Japan that you can get market approval of your cell therapy product already after phase 2, clinical phase 2. What a fantastic opportunity for these companies in Japan, and also US are looking into some similar changes. I really do hope also that the regulatory authorities in Europe will look into these possibilities. It would help a lot for companies in cell and gene therapy.
If not, then maybe companies start moving to Japan.
Yes.
We don't want that. And Lars, what about you? What are the trends you're looking at?
Same as Hedby, but I'd like to add one thing, and that's pricing. A lot of gene and cell therapy coming out on the market has, and similar to Idogen, a long duration of effect. How do you manage that from a pricing perspective? How do you pay for something that works for 10 years?
Yeah. If it works for 10 years, it's worth a lot as well.
It is.
I'd like
but
to
it will kill your budget.
kill your budget, rather the budget than me.
Yep.
I would like to thank you very much for this panel discussion, and great to have you here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.